All right, guys. So in the midst of these lockdowns in New York City, Bill de Blasio comes out and has this conference where he says something that I think is the exact opposite of what the taxpayers in New York City want to hear. Now, this is coming during a time where everybody is just kind of aware of the global economic goal of the Great Reset. The Great Reset essentially is saying that, hey, we're going to use this pandemic as an excuse to reevaluate and reinvent capitalism, right? This is on a global scale. Now, on a domestic scale, what is happening is what I want to call the Great Migration. The Great Migration has already been happening even before the pandemic, but the pandemic has speeded up the Great Migration significantly. And some of you guys may ask, where are people migrating from? Well, they are migrating from the liberal states up north and the liberal West Coast down south to the more conservative states like Florida, Georgia, Texas, Arizona, states like that. And this is something that I talked about kind of in more detail in my video regarding Elon Musk moving to Texas. So if you want to check that out, I already talked about that. Now, what Bill de Blasio is saying is interesting because he's essentially saying stuff that is going to incentivize people with money to move out of New York, which they already are doing, while Cuomo is begging them to stay. But before we get in that, my name is Greg Foreman and you're watching A Black Conservative Perspective. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share A Black Conservative Perspective, aka a leftist worst nightmare. You can also follow me on Twitter at GForemanBCP. Let's get it. All right, guys. So Bill de Blasio is doing his press conference where he's discussing what the goals are for New York City moving forward and how he's going to achieve that. Take a look.
But the bottom line is we can never accept a broken status quo. We can never go back to a past that didn't work. The COVID era has taught us that so clearly. And we need to do better, and we will. And that means a commitment to fighting disparities and inequality in every part of the life in New York City. And that certainly takes us to education, where if you're talking about the problems of disparity, if you're talking about structural racism, certainly policing is not the only area to talk about. There are many areas to talk about, and education must be front and center. There has been so much that needed to be addressed in education in New York City. And from the beginning, what I tried to focus on was a very simple concept, equity and excellence, that we needed to profoundly change the distribution of resources. I like to say very bluntly, our mission is to redistribute wealth. A lot of people bristle at that phrase. That is, in fact, the phrase we need to use.
All right, guys, you hear it there. He said his goal is to redistribute wealth. Okay. Now, when I heard this, I was like, oh no, the Democrats are coming out and telling us exactly what they want to do. Some of you guys are probably like, this is full-blown Marxism, communism, right? And really, I don't blame people for thinking that way, because me personally, one of the biggest things I hate about the whole redistribute the wealth narrative that the Democrats want to push is that they always want to redistribute the wealth towards the government, and they want the government to spend taxpayer money, right? They never ever talk about let's redistribute directly to the middle class or to those that are in the most need. They always want to do it through the government, right? That's probably my biggest issue with it. Now, I don't know what money Bill de Blasio is going to use to redistribute the wealth, because the wealth is leaving New York City rapidly. I'm not kidding about that at all. Let's take a look. Like I alluded to before at the beginning of this video, guys, as you can see here, and this is from Bloomberg Wealth, right? Even before COVID, 2,600 people a week were leaving New York City. New York City was losing 367 residents per day to domestic migration in 2019, an increase of more than 100 per day from the previous year, before it became the epicenter of the country's virus outbreak in March this year. according to the U.S. Census Bureau latest survey of population shifts. As you can see, guys, this is the population shift that was already going on even before COVID, right? As you can see, the net loss from New York City is the biggest in the country, right? This is the pink circles. Is that what it look like, guys? Pink. This is where we're losing. So Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, the basically three biggest liberal cities in the country. Look where it's going. Arizona, which is flip blue this year, if you guys believe the election results. Texas, which they said was going to become a swing state. Georgia, which is flip blue again, if you believe the election results. And Florida, which was red, but again, you know, that's historically a swing state. So all these people are moving from these liberal cities down south to more conservative states. And with that population decline, New York City is also losing its tax base. A recent survey found that high-earning New Yorkers reported a slump in their quality of life since the onset of the pandemic. There too, something may have been afoot already. Bloomberg analysis of tax returns by people who migrated between states suggests that New York State lost a total of $9.6 billion in resident earnings in the following years of 2016 and 2017. The data shows that for every dollar income brought into the state by a new arrival, $1.80 was headed the other way. Again, New York is losing taxpayer money quickly. And again, who's paying the most taxes? The richest New Yorkers will devastate city if they leave with $133 billion. An elite group of 38,700 people paid 42.5% of the city's income tax collections, and the top 5% of residents earn more than the bottom 95%. Now, a lot of wealthy people have left New York City already, which caused New York Governor Cuomo to basically beg them to come back. He made it clear what's at stake this summer when he called on the wealthy return to his city, noting that the richest 1% pay a disproportionate amount of taxes and that raising taxes on them would further discourage them to come back. Quote, I literally talk to people all day long who are now in their Hampton house, who also lived here, or in the Hudson Valley house, or in their Connecticut weekend house. And I say, you've got to come back. When are you coming back? Cuomo said in August, we'll go to dinner. I'll buy you a drink. Come over. I'll cook. This man is desperate. He is desperate. The Independent Budget Office projected in July that the city's personal income tax revenues will drop by 10% or $1.3 billion from the 2020 to 21 fiscal years. Wow. A 10% drop in personal income tax revenues. That is a lot of money. Not only Bloomberg, but Fox News has also been reporting on the wealth that is being lost in New York City. As Fox News reported, New York City loses hundreds of billions in wealth as rich residents skip town. New York City's total wealth has fallen by billions of dollars over the past year amid a severe coronavirus outbreak that has driven the richest residents out of town. According to the report from the New World Wealth and Webster Specific, the combined wealth in the Big Apple fell by $336 billion in the 12 months ending June 30th. New York City's total wealth was valued $2.66 trillion compared with $3 trillion during the same period last year. As previously reported by Fox Business, many wealthy individuals abandoned Manhattan for nearby suburbs or other states entirely to escape the densely populated metropolitan area as it became the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak earlier this spring. Moving executives told Fox Business that the exodus from New York City during the past few months has been insane. And many of the residents who have left belong to higher income brackets. United Vans Line CEO Mark Rogers told Fox Business that the majority of residents moving out of Manhattan, 61%, are earning over $100,000. Meanwhile, tax collections in New York City dropped 46% in June, even while revenues generated in other parts of the state recovered. That decline follows a 32% drop in May and 23% drop in April. In May, the state comptroller said the economic devastation facing New York had not been seen since the Great Depression. All right, guys. I mean, what more do you need to know here? New York City is going broke. And then the Democrat mayor, lo and behold, is not calling to lower taxes, but he's calling to basically increase taxes and redistribute the wealth. It's almost like these Democrats want people to move out. They want people to move to other parts of the country, to leave New York City. Not only on top of that, New York City has turned their backs on the small business owners, restaurant owners, closed down their restaurants, closed down the cities, right? So you're not collecting tax revenue there. You're telling rich people to basically leave, that, hey, if you stay here, we're going to take your money and give it to somebody else. I mean, what are these Democrats doing? This may be the most blatant case of city mismanagement I've ever seen in my life. I mean, seriously. Do these people not realize that they're going broke? I mean, obviously, what Cuomo is saying and what Bill de Blasio is saying are directly contradictory to each other. Directly contradictory. How can Cuomo go out and say, oh, we need rich people to come back, we need our wealthy to come back, and then Bill de Blasio come out and say, oh no, we're going to redistribute y'all wealth. We're going to take it, we're going to give it to somebody else. Oh, that's a great job of getting people to come back. Now, I don't know what Bill de Blasio's plan is here. I mean, hey, New York City may be planning to go ahead and say, you know what? Forget it. We're going to implement full-blown communism / Marxism. We don't even care. And we just going to tell people we doing it. If you want to stay here, stay. If you don't, go. But I don't know whose money you going to take. Might be taking your own check. Because after you going to start, take your own check. Right? Start with you. But New York City, the business owners, the wealthy, they're leaving expeditiously. Right? Shout out to T.I. Expeditiously. But yeah, man, let me know what you guys think. Is this code for trying to implement full-blown communism / Marxism in New York City? Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.